Welcome to Jaipuriya Talks, Vlog and Blog, a new exciting place to learn about new things every day. And it's my pleasure to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Anil Kumar Vyas, a real Pandit of retail. Right now, he is Senior Manager, Sales and Business Development at Lifestyle International Private Limited, and he is also a PhD in Marketing and Management from Vanastali Vidyapeeth. So welcome to you, sir, to our show.
Thank you so much for
Yes,
inviting me here.
yes, sir. So it's always very fascinating to know about the first steps of a glorious journey. So we would like to know that how was your childhood, where did you grow up, and how was that era like?
Okay. My childhood was basically in the army or air force cantonment, where we lived with all the, airmen around us. So everyone was equally treated. We studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya, and it was a very ordinary childhood. We experienced everything from playing to studies. Everything was, very, very, very ordinary that way.
So you also dreamt of going to army or services in the childhood?
I tried thrice, but army selection board did not like me somehow.
Okay, okay. So any sports you took up in school time since you are in KV and KV is very good in sports also?
Yeah, I had my interest in hockey and then in football, not much in cricket. So I tried it was more of entertainment rather than real
Okay,
sports.
okay. So that was your plan like to go to services, I think, in your school days?
Everyone around us had this similar plan. They wanted to go as an army officer, air force officer. We tried service selection board, CDS, everything. We tried NDAs, whatnot.
Okay,
But
okay, all
somehow
right.
the selection process is somewhat unknown. We don't understand how they select, so it
Mhm.
could go through.
All right, all right. So in your after school, you did your graduation in science stream. So what was the plan there?
In fact, I tried for MBBS, and but somehow the entrance exam was too tough. So
Okay.
not going in medical, was by it's or by chance. If you don't get into MBBS, you go into BSc
Mhm.
biology. So I selected physics, chemistry, biology as my subjects, zoology as in my subject.
Mhm. So that was the era like then there was only three options in your case also either go to services or become a doctor or an engineer,
Right,
right? Right.
absolutely.
Yes, yes.
In fact,
So
it's the fourth choice to become a graduate, but
mhm.
99% of the people only did graduation, more than that, in fact.
Okay.
So I also was one of my batchmate that made a journey through a graduation, science graduate. So
Mhm.
that was like that.
Okay, okay. So so how did you end up in an MBA course then back then because it was not in fashion like this today.
Yes. In fact, I during my graduation, I did my graduation in Jodhpur
Mhm.
Institute, and we never came across the discussion of MBA.
Okay.
After graduation, one of my classmates told me that he's doing MBA. I asked him what is MBA. It
Mhm.
didn't really appeal to me. In fact, I started my job. I joined as a medical representative in one of the pharmaceutical company, top pharma company.
Mhm.
And somehow after 2 years, one of my boss gave me a prospectus of Indira Gandhi Open University, and he
Okay.
told me, "Why don't you enroll in marketing diploma?"
Mhm.
So although I was not very fascinated, but reading the books that uh, you know generated interest in me. So I read those booklets and I appeared in exam. I scored good also. That regenerated my academic interest.
Okay.
So after 2 years, after doing one diploma and then another diploma, I thought, why not do an MBA? Then I asked someone, "Ki, what is MBA?" So
Mhm.
somebody told it's a very tough examination. In Jodhpur University was among the forerunners and beginners of this course in Rajasthan.
Mhm.
So they had entrance exam in which 35,000 people sat, and
Oh,
only 23 plus 7, 30 seats were there to get it.
okay.
So it was a
Tougher
very
than cat.
that time even CAT was tough. This was also CAT. This was also tough, but it was difficult for me, a working person, trying to enter into MBA course, which has got 30,000 competitors. It was not an easy task. So I devoted 6 months for this thing, entirely devoted, like morning, evening, night, continuously. I took a lot of leaves while traveling journeys. I had a lot of outdoor travel. And during journey, 3-4 hours, I used to read all the books and entrance exam. I did my coaching, some coaching also. So ultimately, I entered MBA with, with a challenge. In fact, the challenge, in fact, was very interesting for me, because I rediscovered myself that even I can compete and excel in anything I want. So that was first winning kind of. Before that, my childhood was more of a mediocre, 60-70% kind of a student, not very academically very strong or very weak, mediocre so far.
So you have this fascination of like habit of doing job as well as studies, as we can see that very recently you have completed PhD also. So we will come to that also. But how was your first job like? Like you have said that after graduation you joined pharmacy, a pharmaceutical company. So how did you land up there, and what was the experience there?
In fact, it was my first job. In fact, it was not a very chosen one. Whatever came first, which gave me good remuneration, I joined that. And being a pharma or a bio student, they took me easily. And that was first company called Nicholas, now known as Abbott India. It was the world's one of the best companies to work for. So I got into it by chance. That is what I would say. It was not a planned way. But after 4 years, when I left pharma and did my MBA, and then it was a different journey altogether. I saw things from the management's perspective.
So how was your batch like? Like you were 30 students, I think 23 plus 7 means what? 23 boys, 7 girls?
No, 23 means general and 7 reserved.
Reserved. Okay. So what was the gender ratio back then? What was this? When was this? Which year?
It was a year 1995.
95. Okay.
So gender ratio was like 7 or 8 girls in my class, and rest were boys.
Okay. So only you were experienced, or were there more other experienced people also?
Another one. We were only 2 experienced that time, because it was so tough academically. Sound people used to cross that barrier. So we were the rare people, who were having some market experience.
So how was that MBA program different from your like BSc or other kind of programs? Like you were saying that it opened a lot of doors in management for you. So what did you learn there, and how did you learn there?
In fact, a biology or a chemistry graduate is a kind of theoretical, practical also, but not relevant to practical life outside the college. So when we come to a management college, they teach us exactly how the things work around us, why the companies do what they do, and how do they decide, and what are the different perspectives of the organization. How does the organization grow? Why certain organizations don't grow? Good, bad, ugly things of management in terms of managing the organization that way. So Philip Kotler was one of the very book that opened my mind. Okay, this is the way that we have to look at things. And I was a marketing guy before while working in pharmaceutical company. So that way it explained me how things work actually.
So nowadays, like after Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, people say that college degree is not required. And certainly so many people generally say that you don't learn how to do a business in an MBA program, right? But since you have done it way back in 1995, and then you have been in business, even before that you were in business. So how much like importance do you give to this learning during the MBA program to your career so far?
There are always a set of people who are away from the normal things. They already know, they have got mindset that way. So these are very few and far between, in fact. So when you see other people, look, there are not many Bill Gates. There is only one Bill Gates. And so you cannot compare Bill Gates with every other person, because 99% of people have to learn skills. They don't have it. So learning requires a good teacher, good management college, etc. So I differ on that part. Ki, if you name Bill Gates, then you name many other people who are actually learning continuously from the college, etc.
So nowadays MBA programs put a lot of stress on, team work, team learning, assignments, projects, live projects, summer internships. So were these things there also, and how were these things at that time?
Yeah, it was there that time also. Although case study was not that prominently taught that way, we were more of academic, but we got certain projects in market which developed us. In fact, we did a project with Dainik Bhaskar and Rajasthan Patrika. Bhaskar was about to be launched at that time. We did a
Okay.
market survey, large market survey involving some 7 districts. We
Mhm.
went to village, taking the opinion. What do you expect out of a newspaper? What are the different customer categories, and etc. etc. We did a large survey of that time. That was one of the project I remember, which was done very seriously and enthusiastically.
So after all of this hard work at MBA, and this is more of students today also think like this, that once they have done MBA, the CEO's office will be available for them. Once they enter the corporate, there will be a driver, chauffeur-driven car and things like that. So what was your expectation after doing MBA, and what was your first job after doing MBA?
In fact, to dream is nothing wrong. One can dream, but I always say ki if you have a destination in your mind, the first step is complete. Then you have to decide how to go to that destination. A journey should also be equally, planned that way. So dream is not nothing bad, but everyone goes into a CEO's office is not correct also. Then you have to choose a smaller company to go into. Then you can become a CEO of a small company. Not everyone can become CEO of Microsoft and big companies. So that time, after leaving my first after leaving my college, I that time recession came in 1997. It was a
Okay.
financial recession. People didn't offer jobs. Finance jobs were very difficult. Marketing jobs were okay. We got some jobs and all. So I went into a company called 3M Unitech. That was again a good company to work for. Uh, that is where I restarted my journey. Then I came back in pharmaceuticals for a small stint, where I had a range of products, which in fact very interesting products. So I was into consumer products, I was into pharmaceutical products, I was in sleeping diets, a lot of
Mhm.
things together. That was a very interesting journey. So I later on joined a company called Novartis.
Okay.
So that was another company where I took care of one of the states and different divisions. So
So you have sort of started your journey twice in the corporate, once before PGD MBA and once after MBA.
yes.
So was there some difference of the expectations from the company per se, from you as a person? And in general, what are the expectations of an organization from an MBA graduate vis-a-vis a non-MBA graduate?
Certainly expectations are high when they think you understand the business better. So they will expect you to decide better, manage things better, organize things better. They would expect you to look at the numbers effectively, chase the numbers. Um, any organization wants enthusiastic people who drive the numbers, drive through the objectives of the organization. So this is a normal expectation with everyone. So if you are calling yourself MBA, then expectation goes up a little bit. Other people might not expect you to perform that well. पर MBA तो तुमको मालूम होगा कि you understand balance sheet, you understand management, organization structure, decision making, steps, processes, etc. etc. These words are pretty common that way.
So there is this kind of criticism, kind of thought process also, that some people say that MBA is just a glorified degree, or it's just a personality development kind of degree. And especially with students, like they say, or people, they say that doesn't matter much. So how do you view, like after your 20 years journey, pre-MBA, post-MBA, and your 20 years in corporate, so do you feel that yes, there is a difference and there has to be a difference?
There is a difference. There's no doubt about it. Like somebody having a doubt for on MBA should meet a good MBA guy or should meet a good student who can make a difference. In fact, I met a couple of students in your college who were really, starry. They were really good. I'm still impressed and I don't understand how in 2 years of education has transformed them from a student to a real good manager that way. So it makes a difference. I have no doubt about it. Education makes a difference, and good institutes make good students. Actually,
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So like now you are in lifestyle retail for almost 7 years. So what attracted you to the retail industry per se? And so how is your journey so far in retail?
in 2007, I started my journey in retail because I was interacting with Subiksha Retail that time, Adani Retail or Reliance, currently Reliance, and Big Bazaar. So it was interesting for me to interact with so many customers directly one hand. So I gave an interview for Big Bazaar, Future Group that time. So they took me as a store manager, and from there my journey started in value retailing.
Hmm.
And after 5 years, I joined cash and carry business in Metro, and they taught me about the wholesale business part of it. And after that, since last 7 years, I'm with lifestyle. It's called lifestyle business because it has got departments catering to lifestyle of people. So this is how my journey started, from value retailing, mass retailing to wholesale retailing to lifestyle retailing that way.
So in last 13, 15 years plus, so there has been a digital revolution, there has been an e-commerce revolution also, then there was demonetization. So we'll come to COVID later, but so in how does this affect the retail business per se, and especially the lifestyle retail?
Right. In fact, any new change in the market dynamics impact the way we do the business. Any business will get impacted with the new things which coming into the picture. So these waves do come and transform the business for better. Nothing goes away. Nothing closes down. Hardly any business or hardly any format closes down that way. It only improves or transforms itself. So this online or digital has augmented the brick and mortar industry to a large extent. In fact, long back, sales were calculated on registers. They used to write register ki aaj itna sale hua, itna sale hua. They used to subtract everything and know the inventories tomorrow. Later on, computers came. Later on, now digital things came. Now the people who are involved in recording these things are now doing something else. So things change, they transform, nothing closes.
Hmm.
So digital revolution has only helped the brick and mortar business in improving themselves. Now, I think it is a way to future. And another way, some articles, if you read in Solo, tells you that e-commerce is the future. Of course, e-commerce is the future, but you cannot have only e-commerce without brick and mortar. You will have to have something physical in your hand. As a consumer, you cannot buy anything looking at a photograph. You have to have a feel. If you want to buy a shoe, you have to wear it to experience it, whether it is good or not. Picture will not tell you the complete thing. So looking at the screen, you cannot see that. So now what is happening, what should happen and what will happen is that you will have a mixture of online and offline retailing. And sometime later, we'll not be able to differentiate. This is extremely only online or only offline. We'll have a mixture of that. So any big organization, any big brand will have an experience center where customers go, see, feel, and touch, and then come back. Even Apple, opens a large store, which is they call it experience store, because
Yes.
customers want to see it first. You will
Yes.
लगता कैसा है? Before feeling it, you cannot actually sell it. So this is going to stay for a long time, and going forward, it will be amalgamation of both the things together.
So within the store, within the brick and mortar store, apart from this inventory system, what kind of digital technologies do you think will come inside the store to increase the experience of the customer in coming future?
I think this is going to merge even better. Like it's happening somewhere. You come into the store, experience the product, then order online in
Hmm.
standing inside the store.
Hmm.
Similarly, you go on the online site, they will deliver you the product for
Hmm.
7 days. If you like it, take it. If you don't like it, return it back. So
Hmm.
there is a mattress company which gives you mattress for 7 days. You sleep over
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
experience it. So this online has become offline and the offline has become online. Now it is a mixture. So this
Yes.
is the first transformation which is going to happen. The barrier between online and offline is soon going away. That is what I understand. Secondly, payment wise, digital and non-digital payments are, now one and the same now.
Hmm.
You stand inside the store and don't require a cash.
Hmm.
And you sit at home, you can give cash to the online delivery person.
Yes.
So the barrier is gone away. It is no
Yes.
longer there. So these things will be there. I think more analytics will play a role now. They will understand our needs even better and before we ourselves understand that. They will know, okay, now the person is going to need this. And they are going to plan it, promote it, and deliver it before even I even ask for it, kind of.
Hmm. So do you envision that someday there will be robots inside a brick and mortar retail store who will see your personality and they will, advise you that what to wear and how to wear and things like that?
Robots are in fact physical objects kind of thing, but
Hmm.
I think analytics or computer vision or
Hmm.
algorithms that identify your personality without your picture are
Hmm.
already there. They're
Hmm.
already existing in many retailers and many online
Hmm.
retailers in particular. They understand our personality better than what we understand ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they predict our behavior beforehand. That is
Hmm.
what we already know, that it is already there. It is going to expand even further.
Hmm.
Uh, what I see, the curve is very low right now. If we are learning that way,
Hmm.
sooner, maybe 10 years down the line, we will know everything about the customer and companies will know everything about the customer before even customer knows that. He enters the store, we'll identify the picture with Facebook,
Hmm.
and we know his name. When we know his name, we know his phone number also. When we know his phone number, we know his purchasing order in different retailers. We know the complete personality type. It's a family man or single
Hmm.
man,
Hmm.
college going, etc., etc. And then it push. So we are on that path. Maybe it is only 5 years, 10 years down the line.
Hmm.
We'll have complete understanding of everyone on the earth.
Okay, okay. So then maybe the consumer behavior theories in MBA colleges will become a little bit irrelevant in that sense that AI knows everything.
The consumer behavior will revolve around AI or
Yes,
outcome of AI. So
yes.
we'll no longer see the personality types. What we see today, we'll be having, cohorts of people behaving in different manner. We
Mhm.
know these clusters behave in this manner, and we'll promote the brand, even outlet, looking at that cohorts.
Okay, okay. So what does this mean for the MBA graduates and managers who are entering into retail business? So how will their work style and their lifestyle will change, and what are the sort of new skills they require when this kind of digital transformation is there in the brick and mortar retail stores?
I'm completely thrilled by this question. In fact, what I see, the future is coming for the students or management graduates who look at picture from two perspective at least.
Hmm.
One is the analytics point of view where you don't meet the customer and you understand him completely
Hmm.
through the numbers, and the second one is actually meeting the customer and having understanding about his feelings. How does it feel standing there, what he feels good and what is not feeling not so good, and how can I change this feeling that way. So this analytics part will be easier thing to do for intelligent people,
Hmm.
and that is where the future lies, I believe so.
Hmm. Yes. So you have mentioned feelings. So what is the role of emotions and feelings in retail? So like from management graduates perspective, what kind of psychological training or self-learning the person should have in order to become successful in retail? Because we are talking about feelings and emotions of the consumer and customer also.
It's a more intangible thing, but these things will not be captured in any numbers.
Yes.
What I believe ki feelings are something, when you stand somewhere and you feel ki maja aa gaya,
Hmm.
that word itself signifies that a lot of things are good and nothing is bad. And कुछ कहते हैं मजा नहीं आया, वो जो word है ना, it summarizes everything which is around you. So when you stand at a restaurant or a PlayStation or somewhere, you feel कि it's good, मजा आया, I'll come again. If you are able to create that magic as a retailer, you are winner actually. To understand that, you have to stand in the shoes of the customer and feel how does he feel about it. He may not even able to explain things. मेरे को क्यों ऐसा लगा, but he will tell you कि lot of things are good. I like this, I like that, and all. Some things will be not visible, and words will not explain that, but it is there. So I hear many seniors or many retail stalwarts saying that क्या स्टोर में कुछ है यार, कुछ मजा आता है इसके अंदर. अब वो जो ये है ना, वो they explain that way, that cannot be explained by any other thing. So you have to stand there as a customer and then feel it, whether it is there or not. As a employee, will not be able to feel that way, and it is unexplainable. So this chemistry, if the student is able to understand and the reasons behind it and the factors behind it and modify the factors in favor of the organization, it will make a lot of difference.
All right, all right. So now let's address the elephant in the room also, the COVID-19 pandemic. And the brick and mortar retail is all about touching things, experiencing things, going there, whereas online is sort of safer in that context. So how will this pandemic change the industry, retail industry per se, in coming years?
Pandemic has introduced people to online retailing wherever they were avoiding it kind. In metro cities, online was already present with many of the customers, but in rural heartland, in fact, people didn't know much and they didn't want to touch the phone for payments and all. So this pandemic has broken that barrier too. So people who have not bought any time in past have bought in this pandemic. You may call it as a compulsion or a choice or whatever. They will now experience online. Similarly, there are many offline retailers who are offering now products in online mode. So the companies are now orienting themselves from this online point of view. So even a small manufacturer of sari in Banaras is having his own website to propagate his product or have online orders and deliver, etc. So everyone is now online, and online are people are now connecting with retailers downstream. That connectivity creates a lot of structure of delivery, especially food and grocery. Now as I tell you, it is all mixing up now. It is now one thing. Offline, online is one thing only.
Yes, yes. So do you think like post-COVID, if there is a post-COVID, let's hope for that, right? Things will go back to where they were, or this new normal is going to remain as it is, and online is going to have a rising curve?
Online will have rising curve and offline will also have a rising curve.
Okay.
Consumerism is increasing and people will see, and they will buy from wherever place they feel comfortable. So if I am at home, I'll order from online. If I want to venture out, I want to experience the mall, I'll go and buy that. It will not make a difference online, offline.
Okay. So in 2000s, we used to imagine that by 2020 we will have flying cars, right? Back to the Future and all those movies which we have seen. But in 2020, things are a little bit different. So 20 years down the line, what kind of retail store, brick and mortar store, you visualize in 2040? So your own store in 2040, how do you see that in 20 years down the line?
I cannot comment about my store per se, but I see there will be a structure like hub and spoke, where there will be experience store and there will be delivery stores.
Okay.
So experience store will have everything in experience mode, and then if you like the product, you order it online, or they will order it to online and it will get delivered at your home. This is structure I see because the cost of the space is going up, and secondly, you don't need so many people because people cost is one of the cost which is increasing day by day. So you reduce or cut short on people cost and the location cost or store cost, but companies will have experience store and the delivery stores kind of structure. What I see.
Good. So it's a wonderful concept. They can have this kind of thing also, right? So since you have said that there might be a people cost involved and it has to be reduced. So in that kind of scenario, 10 years down the line, what are the some skills which you would love to see in MBA graduates if they are trying to go into retail industry?
Okay, retail industry is in industry which is sunrise industry in India. We hardly have penetration of retail, modern retail across categories or across cities. So what I know that 6 to 7 or 8% of the people actually go in buy from modern retail. The rest is unorganized industry. So it is going to rise to at least 30-40% in next many years now. So there is a good future of retail industry per se. And what skills will it require? I think one of the foremost skills is analytical skills, where one can comprehend the data generated online, offline, and make some meaning out of it and take decisions basis on that. So I understand that some institutes are also hiring or deploying artificial intelligence softwares and training their students that way. It is going to help them in a long way. Second skill, what I understand is understanding people. So either you understand from digital numbers or physical numbers, you have to understand the customer foremost. If you understand the customer, to understanding consumer behavior, the things will be different. This is a second skill I would say he or she should have it. Third is people management. Earlier, people were very loyal, and they used to obey their managers. Manager ने कह दिया मान लिया. Now people are, more intelligent. They question things, and to manage them, it requires even higher order thinking or a feeling of brotherhood or feeling of oneness has to be there. Through HR intervention or without HR intervention, the manager should have the skill to manage large group of people without explicit display of power. You should still have power, but not displaying it. So these skills students must have or must try to develop, looking at things around them. It has to be learned, and right, nobody can teach them that way. And the fourth thing is the product. What is the product of tomorrow? If you remember, the COVID came, we were selling surgical mask at 50 rupees, 100 rupees, which is a product worth 2 rupees or 3 rupees actually. So if you can see tomorrow what the customer is going to buy, of understanding of his product needs, it is going to go a long way. So analytics, people understanding, consumer behavior, and the products.
So it's a nice mix of all these things. What I could gather from what you are saying is that now people cannot remain into their compartments. Like the person has to have a little bit of analytics as well as HR, as well as product and operations, as well as a little bit of emotional quotient and EQ also. So that's what I think you are trying to say, that it has to be a mix of diverse skills instead of a straight line HR or straight line marketing or finance guy, right?
Right.
So that's going to be the future, I think.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to your fascination with having two boats, having your foot on two boats simultaneously, like studies as well as your job, right? So you always have this kind of learning desire. So I think very recently in that sense, you have completed your PhD also, even when you are handling a very big retail store in a city. So how was that experience and what motivated you to do that?
In fact, it's all started with my manager long time back. He gave me a booklet and saying that you must study.
Okay.
And after that, I, understood myself as
Hmm.
I can excel, I can learn anything I want. So from that time, the journey started, and every day one has to transform himself, or he has to rediscover himself, learn new things, because things are not stagnant; they are changing continuously. Sometimes back, we were not even thinking of analytics as our consumer to that extent. We were just making products, and there was a pull of the product. We used to sell anything which we make. Now things are not like that. You have to understand the customer beforehand. You have to display it well. You have to talk to the customer very well, give him convenience, and then only the things sell, and you make money out of it. So this learning is a instinct that I developed over a period of time, reading a lot of books and meeting a lot of interesting people. uh, they taught me, what I have is not enough. There are a lot of things, other things to learn, and we have only one life to live. So if not this life, then when? So I started thinking about my PhD long time back, but in 2000, I think 13, I registered myself. It took me 6 years to complete that PhD. Uh, Thanks to my teacher, Dr. PK Sharma. In fact, he supported me throughout my journey. So on my free week off days, evening times, I used to spend some time, little time. Uh, my teachers, ex-teachers, motivated me just complete that. So family members, good friends, and people like you. In fact.
Okay, of course, of course. So why I asked you this question, because since I am a professor at a management institute, and their sixth trimester final exam, and then students come back to me and say, yes, sir, after today, there will be no exams in my life. And I feel happy for them that yes, they are graduating. But in some sense, I also feel sad a little bit that now they are, sort of, because people who do MBA, sometimes they start to have this kind of thing that I know everything about business per se. And even after that, you have done a PhD and you have talked about your learning experience. So that was very nice of you. So what keeps you motivated in that sense to keep on learning?
I look at the new people, students, youngsters, what they are trying to do and what is trying to learn. And
Hmm.
any skill which is difficult to acquire, or any skill which is challenging, or which is going to actually add value to my life. So I try to acquire that. So the youngsters motivate me actually.
Okay, okay.
It's not,
So
not to say that I'm not young anymore, but I'm
yeah,
still young. But
yes,
even young, 20, 22 years, kind of aspirations they have got. They tell, "Okay, I'll do this, I'll do that." And that motivates me. When they can learn, anybody, everybody can learn. Regarding examination, what you told, कि examinations are over now, I'm relieved. No, every day is an exam after that. अभी तो सेमेस्टर में खत्म होते हैं एग्जाम, अब आगे जिंदगी में तो रोज होने वाले हैं एग्जाम. Every
yes.
day you will be tested for your temperament, your competence, your analytical skills, your people skills. Everything will be tested every day.
Hmm,
So exam कभी खत्म नहीं होंगे.
and without a syllabus also.
Out of syllabus, of course.
Yes,
Most of the
yes,
time it is out of syllabus.
yes. Most of the time it will be out of syllabus also. So if I can ask you one out of the syllabus question, that what is the new skill which you are aspiring to learn in 2, 3 years down the line? Is there something you are looking forward to learn?
Nowadays I've already got last 2 3 years, in fact last 5 years, after doing my PhD, like it's like 4 years now.
Hmm,
So I have got interested in analytical power analytics, because retail analytics go together.
hmm,
And I have learned Python as a language,
hmm,
because it's good in analytics. Secondly, machine learning develops my interest. In fact, I'm curious to know more about machine learning.
hmm,
I have done one course from Coursera, uh, uh, Audacity, sorry,
hmm,
Audacity. So that tells me about this, what a kind of algorithms which go into machine learning. And the second part which I am learning is to apply these things into the practical life, practical world of retail
hmm,
and the stock market.
hmm,
If you see, the stock market is also a haphazard kind of thing. You don't understand much. It goes up, goes down. How can you derive meaning out of it? So that is a vertical called as technical analysis, which explains the movements of market. So I am learning that part and ML Python now.
Okay, very good. So very interesting to know that you are, even after your PhD and even after reaching at this position in your industry and in your career, you are still doing MOOC courses, which
Yes.
we keep on asking students to do also. So it's very fascinating to know that. So what, like any person or any book or any movie which has created an impression in your mind, which has inspired you to learn new things every day and things like that.
In fact, I don't spend time with movies now. I am very fascinated with YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube is a world of knowledge, and a lot of people are there to teach you without any cost. You have to just take a connection. That's all. So YouTube has got many stories. One of the story I remember is Jim Simons. He is a person who created wealth from some algorithm
Hmm.
30 years back, 40 years back. So
Okay.
he's the kind of mathematician who derived meaning out of numbers and understood the human behavior,
Hmm.
and that created, developed my interest into this subject. If
Hmm.
he could have done, he has done 30 years back, 30 40 years back, I can do it today also. So we can create a magic every day. There are ways to learn out of it, right? So there are other books I would recommend students to read is Why Nations Fail.
Hmm.
It is a book by Robinson and Daron, which tells you why some nations are successful, others are not.
Hmm.
You can see that in why some people are successful, others are not,
Hmm.
or some organizations are very successful, others are not. It's a very beautiful book, well written. It creates a context and goes to the point, saying that how does a successful organization behave and monitor itself.
And a person is also an organization in that sense.
Yeah.
So we can learn from the organizations for our personal life also, right? So it's the end of the vlog now. And Anilji, I would request you to share with us, like, do you have a personal philosophy or one success mantra or some kind of statement which you keep on telling to yourself and which you would like to share with our students also?
I tell to myself, थकना मना है, थकना तो है ही नहीं.
Hmm.
And before going to bed, I think of myself ki what did I achieve today, what did I learn today.
Hmm.
If I don't get an answer, I have to get up early tomorrow morning and do something for it.
So learning every day something new is your mantra, and that is the mantra of our blog also. We are trying to create a culture where people can learn from industry stalwarts like you. So thank you very much, Anilji. It was really a pleasure having you in our blog, and I hope that the audience and the listeners and the viewers are going to learn a lot from today's blog. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you very much.